Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. Let's get right into the papers. And Mr. Dayo Akitobi, journalist and public affairs analyst, joins us live in the studio. Mr. Akitobi, good morning, sir.
Very good morning.
Are you excited? For the same reasons as we all are this morning.
I'm excited because it's Friday. even though I thank God it's Monday person, I tell you the advantage of Friday. We get to leave the tie at home. And I've discovered that when I don't wear that tie, my analysis is more discerning. I suspect the tie is not allowing oxygen to get to my brain.
So I have to pick up my tie, right?
Exactly. Tie or no tie, you're always on point. I don't want to believe that. So, subsidy or no subsidy? Atiku and Tinubu.
Anything that will bring the price of fuel at the pump down is what Nigerians want. We don't care about the esoteric language and the statistics and the economy and governance and politics and all the brickbats they are throwing. We don't care. What will bring down the price of fuel back to pre-2023 levels? Because once that happens, everything else can revert back to default mode, kind of in terms of transport prices, food prices. So let's leave the technical analysis to the experts as to, I will do subsidy like this, I won't do it like this. And I listened to the pre-commentary about, somebody's doing a volte-face and Atiku had said he would remove subsidy, now he's changing his mind. Well, this is the beauty of democracy, is that if you see a policy is not having the intended effect or is having a deleterious effect on the people, the idea of democracy is choice, is the ability to enter a marketplace of ideas. That's why I'm excited about what's happening now, because we're debating issues. We're giving real choices to the people. So somebody is saying, no, I'm going to keep subsidy the way it is, and I will still keep trying to get you micro relief. I've done macro, restructuring. But micro reform has not translated to micro relief. So somebody said, I'm still going to stay with that and continue because I believe in these reforms. And somebody else is saying, I'm looking at a different way to do it. Even if it means, throwing out the old way it was done and doing it a different way. He's not saying subsidy is gone completely. He's just saying, I'm going to do it a different way. Now, that gives the people a choice. Is he believable? I took exception to the president's classification of the fact that he's ignorant in economics and governance, because he's been vice president for 8 years. He was right there and was a part of making those decisions that related to economics, politics, and governance.
National Economic Council.
Absolutely. So you can't call him an economic illiterate. It's not possible. So I think that's simply just politics at play. But for me, the key thing is, we have alternatives. Now we have choices. So it's for us to look at it and balance it. How he's going to do it is too technical for lay people like us. When he says, okay, I'm going to subsidize production, we will supply crude to refineries, both public and private ones, at a discounted rate, and we will now make sure that they pass that discount on to the end user, which will give Nigerian citizens relief. Beautiful. I've been one person who all along felt that 220 million Nigerians should not be penalized because 1,000 fuel marketers are scamming the entire country. I felt like the proper solution to that would have been to go after those 1,000 people, arrest, indict, prosecute, penalize, forfeit their assets, do everything, and then show up the loopholes they exploited. Because as Jeff said, subsidy in and of itself is not a bad thing. All the developed nations subsidize their people one way or another. Energy, look at the UK had the most horrific winter this last year, and they were giving people energy credits. They were giving people, heating, vouchers, because they know that in extreme situations, the most vulnerable among us, they need a leg up. So subsidy in and of itself is not bad. It's how you go about doing it. And the fact that some Nigerians were able to be clever enough to exploit the loopholes did not mean that all the rest of us should have had to pay the price for their misbehavior, their bad behavior, their theft. We didn't have to pay the price for it. So I have always felt that there was a better way to go about restructuring the industry in a way that would still have been sustainable. Because look at it now. The money that has been saved from removing the subsidy, it has not translated into benefits for Nigerians. The money just simply the money that you were giving Nigerians before, you took it away from Nigerians and have given it to other people who are not giving it to Nigerians. So how have you gained? So I'm glad that we've come to this stage where we're looking at it critically.
The conversation has begun.
Absolutely. And as you invited all the other aspirants, all the other contestants to put their feet in and bring in their ideas as well. So we have a marketplace of competing ideas, because that is what throws up the best opportunity for us as Nigerians to determine our future.
Well,
That was a pregnant pause.
all right, let's start with New Telegraph this morning, because I think about 2 or 3 papers already have had to lead with the controversy around fuel subsidy. So let's switch to New Telegraph. It says, "Don't travel to Imo, Katsina, 9 other Nigerian states. UK warns citizens." Cautions against all but essential travel to parts of 19 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Mr. Akitobi.
That is a dire warning. I mean, we've seen these kind of warnings before, where embassies warn their staff, to do only essential travel to certain areas. But when you see this blanket, I mean, you look at the disconnect between Imo and Katsina, look at their geographic divergence, and you ask, what is the common denominator among these disparate states, and of course it all boils down to insecurity. For UK to be warning its citizens to be careful in terms of travel, it means they can't guarantee the security of their own citizens in any of those places. Well, I don't think there's any doubt that insecurity is still a big problem in Nigeria. I mean, just I think yesterday, or was it on Wednesday, there were attacks in Plateau, and it still continues on a daily basis. So this is what it means to be a country that is patriotic to its citizens, and its citizens are patriotic to their country, whereby the country is protecting its people, even if that worry or scare is exaggerated, even if it is overemphasized or maybe perhaps over the top. As long as they have some semblance of the fact that their citizens may be at risk, they have an obligation. That's what the foreign missions are there for. That's what the embassies, the consulates are there for, is the protection of their citizens who are in the diaspora. So I can't blame those countries. For me, I don't think that warning is a proper reflection of reality, because Nigerians are traveling in all those places every day, and I don't think those places are any more dangerous than the other places where insecurity is rife. For the UK to be saying this, they must have some intelligence that indicates to them that their citizens could be at risk. So there's nothing really wrong with that, except it sends maybe the wrong impression, especially at the time when we're trying to remove this designation of country of particular concern. Some people went to America recently from the presidency to go and try and persuade the American the American Assembly to remove that designation.
Congress.
Congress. So when this kind of a thing comes out at a time like this, that gives more ammunition, more fuel to people in America to be able to say, your country is unsafe. Why should we consider removing that designation? So, it's more of a shot in the arm to our security forces. I don't know if that's probably one of the things we want to talk about, that the president said he's giving 400 and something billion to the states for security. And you ask yourself, okay, he's about to give the money. It's not that he's giving it, but what are the states going to do with that money to improve insecurity in their own domain? For too long, the individual states have hidden under the constitution that security is not their remit. They don't have the power, they don't have the authority, and so they've just abdicated all responsibilities, despite the fact that they swore an oath to protect lives and property of the people within their state.
Mr. Akitobi, add to that security vote.
Governor Fashola once said there was no such thing as security votes. So I myself...
Do you believe that?
Well, that might have been a political statement. I know it's not captured in the Constitution, but I do believe they get something in terms of... the question you ask is, if they are not the chief security officer in name only, they don't have any substantive authority to do anything, they can't arm their people, they can't... So then what is the security vote being given for?
Buy vehicles. So we can say he's a chief logistics officer, perhaps. All right, let's get to the Guardian newspaper. Two stories I would like you to binge on. How recipe for disaster, the Guardian newspaper. Recipe for disaster, how poor regulation on hygienic practices worsen food safety crisis. the Guardian newspaper, if we could go to the Guardian, how poor regulation on hygienic practices worsen food safety crisis. And Mr. Akitobi, this is important because what we ingest, what we eat is critical these days. The Guardian newspaper, guys. There's a story just beneath it I would like you to talk to as well in the same breath. APC stakeholders group trade blame in Ashu Guba poll aftermath. So APC, I heard somebody say that the APC is going through the progressive period of grief. You know, first you deny, then you get angry, and then you accept later. However, but this gives a pointer, and it's a lesson they have to learn as well from the PDP. Yeah. PDP did not collapse in 2015 because of the strength of the merger and the APC. No, I don't. From my analysis, I don't think so. They collapsed because they were not able to put their house. The cracks was from within, beyond the formidable opposition that came against them, and it's the fate of the APC the way they are going. Yeah. So they need to pay attention, because how formidable they are is the cracks will start from within, and it has already started.
Yes. Let's talk about the food first. The food, the unhygienic food practices. The front page of the Guardian. You see, because we are under an economic crunch, people are cutting a lot of corners in terms of being able to try and save money, being able to try and eat. So you know, they're buying foods of lesser quality. There's something in the market. There's a type of tomato that's going bad. That's a few days from going off. That the price is reduced so much that people still buy and go and use to make soup at home. And these kind of things are unhealthy. I had an episode of food poisoning a few years ago that almost terminated my life. And it was something so simple. You wouldn't think. I just had a sandwich that had mayonnaise in it, and I didn't finish it, and I left it out overnight, and the next morning I put it in the refrigerator. 3 days later I came back to it, not knowing that that mayonnaise had gotten contaminated during the time I left it on the table overnight. And I got it out of the fridge 3 days later, looking fresh, smelling nice. I ate it. Boy, I landed in hospital with the worst case of food poisoning, and people actually die from this thing. We underestimate what contaminated food can do in terms of health and fitness. So economic crisis has led to people cutting the kind of corners where, you know, things like even power. The fact that power is epileptic means that things you preserve in the refrigerator no longer have the kind of cooling ability to be able to keep them fresh and preserved. Then there's also the trucks that are bringing things from the north. The roads are bad, there are checkpoints, there's insecurity. By the time they get here, half of the produce has gone bad. So our regulators need to pay more attention to the quality of food. I mean, I saw Lagos do something recently called a market hub. And I imagine that in these kind of government-sponsored outlets, that the quality of food will be monitored very well. But at the end of the day, it's still up to us to police what we put inside ourselves. We are what we eat. That is the truth. Now, going back to the issue of the APC in Osun, they made a couple of classic blunders that I see, and that if they don't resolve them very quickly, they could snowball into an internal implosion. The day the APC lost Osun election was the day they began with the imposition of candidates at the primary. That was the day it went, because there are so many disgruntled and aggrieved insiders. The biggest and most formidable one being Iola Omishore, and you could see the outcome of him being sidelined in the results in Ife, which you see what Adeleke was able to score in Ife.
Sachibola Bashiru, the secretary of the NWC as well.
Yes.
Who could also pick the ticket as well.
Absolutely. So they left quite
lost his polling units.
So that was one big problem, that a person like Iola Omishore was disgruntled, and they didn't move to reconcile all those people in time enough. Governor Oyetola, who had been rejected by the people in 2022.
The way you put it.
Absolutely, that's the truth. He seemed to have supported the candidate Oyebamiji and insisted on that person being the one who was put forward by the party, to the chagrin of everybody else, you know. And then let's also remember that Governor Adeleke himself tried to go to the APC. They rejected him. He tried very hard when the PDP in his state, you know, disintegrated to nothing. He tried to go to the APC. They rejected him. So when you look at the aggregation of all those factors, there's the Aregbesola factor as well, who is still a player in Osun politics, no matter how you look at it. Even though some people have tried to say, well, the outcome of the ADC elections with the low numbers should Aregbesola is not a factor. Well, I think the ADC is still relatively new. They haven't got their act together, but you can't discount Aregbesola's influence in Osun State after being a governor for 8 years, a minister for 8 years. And I think his not being in the APC also has a centripetal effect. The center, all the units are pulling apart from the center in Osun State, and so that obviously had an outcome on its performance in Osun. And if they're not careful, let it not go and replay itself at the national level come 2027.
You know who I pity the most in this loss? Beside Oyetola, who I said to my colleagues that Adeleke has beaten him twice by himself and by proxy. It's Ajibola Bashiru.
Yes.
Because I remember when the governor of Rivers State defected to the APC.
Yes.
And then Nyesom Wike was fighting. He released a salvo.
Bashiru.
In fact, when I saw the salvo, I had to call him. He said yes. He sent it.
To confirm that he was the one.
He sent it to me. I said okay. So now the way Wike works is that Wike doesn't like talking too much. Can you deliver your polling unit? You get where I'm going, right?
It also depends on how you deliver your polling unit as well. And so some of the things that the minister has been saying about the Osun election are questionable. So let's just leave that one there.
I understand.
Would have gone to the Vanguard newspaper, which has already, trailed on the security concern. It leads with this one: why US won't remove Nigeria's CPC tag, and it's Congressman Riley Moore who has been, weighing in on this in the last a couple of months so far. But let's look yet again at New Telegraph newspaper, but the bottom strip. I'd like you to weigh in on this story. 2027, Okorocha sues INEC APC over Imo West Senatorial District. Asks court to, let's see it again now, to declare him APC senatorial candidate. We're ready for battle of ideas in Imo East. And he says he was one that won that Imo West Senatorial District election, but INEC published the name of the governor. Well, is Senator Okorocha himself, innocent of what he's accusing the Imo governor of? He's been a two-term governor himself, and we know that the Imo governor's tenure is expiring on January 18, by which time the elections would have been concluded, yet he wants to go to the Senate. 2028 rather.
Yes, indeed. Well, obviously the Senate has become a retirement haven for our governors. Otherwise, why would someone who still has almost a whole year on his tenure as governor be putting in to want to go to the Senate? I guess by then he's done 7 years as governor. He's achieved everything he wants to. He's now looking for his retirement home, and he realizes that if he doesn't do it now and sacrifice that 1 year, then there's little or no chance for him to get, at least during that tenure of the Senate. So former Governor Okorocha is kind of a polarizing figure. He was somewhat controversial during his time, but what is playing out in Imo now played out in a couple of other places as well, including Ogun, where the governor uses his might as the leader of the party in that state to impose himself on the ticket. Matter of fact, in Ogun State again, that is happening now with Governor Abiodun and with former Governor Daniel. But even before that, at the end of the tenure of Governor Amosu, Senator Larry Tejuosho had that seat and wanted to go for a re-election, and Senator Amosu just stood up and said, I want that seat, and I, as the leader of the party, and Senator Tejuosho put his hands up and stepped down for him, because that is the way the party is structured. The leaders are the ones who dictate the tune, and everybody else must march in lockstep. So once the governor has his eye on that seat, forget it. Rochas Okorocha is claiming that the seat should be his. He won the primary. He's governor, and the leader of the party in the state says, I want that seat. So he's gone to court to go and fight for it. I'm not sure he can prevail. We'll see how it happens, because at the end of the day, I think that we don't separate politics and governance in our own democracy, which is causing a bit of tension. I don't think it is right that the most senior official in the party in the state becomes automatically the leader of the party. the governor or the president should be answerable to the party. They are representing the party, not the other way around. That because I've become the head honcho as an elected officer, I now dictate to the party. You see, so it's the party that is the umbrella that carries all of us. It sponsors us for the office. It is the one who codifies its ideology under which we all are supposed to toe the line. So by the time you now have a strong man, see, sometimes I think it's a cliche when we talk about strong institutions and strong individuals, but sometimes you see these examples, that are stark in our sight. So this dichotomy you're seeing now, whereby governors are railroading their way into Senate seats despite a legitimate primary bid or a legitimate interest being expressed, but not being allowed to be interrogated through the primary process, which I think is what Okorocha is fighting for now. He says, we went through a primary, I won, how can the governor now come and claim the seat simply because he's the leader of the party in the state? So maybe it's good we go to court and let the court decide so that once and for all we can put that
it's still about failure of institution within parties. Because who funds the party that is the chairman
that
of
determines.
The party. The chairman of the party is the person who funds
So
it.
what would it take us to get to that level of strong institutions in actual fact and indeed? Well, we'll leave that. Thank you very much.
That one is above my pay grade.
Mr. Dayo Akintobi, always a delight having you on the newspaper review segment. Dayo Akintobi is a journalist and public affairs analyst. And from here, we'll take a moment. When we return, we have our work set out for us today as we begin our next conversation. We celebrate the International Day for the Remembrance of Victims of Terrorism. Stay with us for this important one. We'll be right back.